I am back with the second half of Chapter 4, A Nice Family Dinner. We left off with the book huggers realizing Alex and Connor were back. The twins were all eyes as they looked around the diner's fusion of fairy tale and 1950s decor. They knew Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters had opened the restaurant after moving to the other world, but this was their first time seeing it. Rosemary was in the middle of taking an order when she saw the Baileys out of the corner of her eye. The waitress abandoned the customers in mid-sentence to greet her old friends. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," Rosemary said, and hugged the twins. "Hi, Rosemary," Connor said. "This place looks great." "Are Petunia and your mom around?" Alex asked. "Mother has the night off, and Petunia got another job, working for a veterinarian," Rosemary said. "Good riddance, if you ask me. She was a lousy waitress." "I'll be sure to tell them you stopped by. Are you coming for dinner?" "Yes," Charlotte said. "Table for 4, please." "Right this way," Rosemary said. The stepsister grabbed 4 menus and sat them in a booth directly next to the book huggers. The girls quickly picked their copies of Adventures of Sherlock Holmes and covered their faces with them. But Alex and Connor weren't paying attention. The twins were so amused by all the art and knickknacks throughout the diner they didn't even notice their former classmates. "How's Cinderella doing?" Rosemary asked the twins once they were settled in their booth. "Well, actually," Alex was about to tell Rosemary the truth when her mother gave her a stern look. Anything that might get them off the topic of nice family discussion wasn't allowed at dinner tonight. "Just fine," Alex said. "Hope's growing like a weed." "Wonderful. Please give them my best," Rosemary said. "I hope you enjoyed the food. When you're ready to order, just wave me down. Oh, we're out of the beanstalk salad tonight." Rosemary went back to the customer while Alex and her family looked over the menu. It referenced so many people and places in the fairy tale world it was absolutely aggravating not to talk about the current crisis. The twins hoped their nice family dinner would end as soon as possible. "So, kids, what's new?" Charlotte asked. "How are your friends doing?" She was so calm and casual, Alex and Connor knew she wasn't referring to the truth. They shared a curious look, and it suddenly dawned on them what their mother was doing. Their nice family dinner was a chance for Mom to pretend they were a perfectly normal family living perfectly normal lives. The twins felt like they were in a play they didn't have the script for. "Good," Connor said. Goldilocks and Jack are expecting their first baby." "That's wonderful," Charlotte said. "Do they know if it's a boy or girl?" She knew as well as he did that the fairy tale didn't have ultrasounds, but he continued to play her game. "Nope," Connor said. "I guess they're waiting to be surprised." "Your father and I did the same when we had you," Charlotte said. "We weren't sure if we were having 2 boys or 2 girls. We just knew that there would be 2 of you. Imagine our surprise when we had 1 of each. We didn't have to return any of the baby clothes." Connor found this fascinating. "Really?" he said. "What would you have named us if we were 2 girls or 2 boys?" "The firstborn was always going to be an Alex, no matter what," Charlotte said. "I loved the name since I was a little girl. It was the name of my favorite doll. But if Connor had been a girl, his name would have been Sarah." "What a coincidence! Before Margaret passed away, we were planning on having a baby, and if it was a girl, we would have named her Sarah too," Bob said. "Were Alex and Connor an easy delivery?" Charlotte let out a long laugh at the memory that came to her. "Giving birth was easy compared to the days that followed," she said. "Their grandmother was so excited to have grandchildren, she visited us every day with someone new from the fairy tale world. The first day she brought Mother Goose, who almost mistakenly switched Connor's bottle with her flask. Thank goodness that I was an overly protective first-time mom and saw it happen. The second day, we had the whole fairy council in the house. They were lovely, but kept magically upgrading our belongings into nicer things. By the time they left, we didn't even recognize our own house." The twins had never heard this story before and laughed just as hard as Bob did. They could tell their mother enjoyed telling it as much as they enjoyed hearing it. "Those were good times," Charlotte said with a bittersweet smile. "I miss them." These were the moments of nice family discussion that Charlotte was so desperate for. The Baileys hadn't had them since the twins' father died. There was no talk of death or turmoil like in their usual conversations. They were just a family laughing and sharing stories with one another. As much as Alex wanted to continue hearing stories about their parents, not addressing the issue at hand was eating her alive. Connor could feel the impatience boiling inside his sister. He knew that it was only a matter of time before she ended their mother's game of pretend. "Mom, I'm sorry you haven't had more moments to tell us stories like that," Alex said. "You're right. You and Dad raised us to put family first, and we haven't for a long time." "Thank you, Alex," Charlotte said. "It means a lot." "But," Alex said, "I can't keep pretending everything is okay when we know it's not." Connor covered his face with his hands. "Oh boy, here we go," he said. Alex, I asked you guys not to bring this up. I'm sorry, but I have to, Alex said. Right now, a lot of people need our help. I know Connor and I have given up a lot, and you've given up a lot by association. But we don't care what we sacrifice if it saves our friends and all the families like ours. We're doing the right thing because that's also the kind of son and daughter you and Dad raise. So please, let us. Charlotte looked at her children differently than she had all day. She wasn't glaring at them with frustration or anger, but with pride. She reached across the table and held their hands with her own. I'm sorry, she said. I guess I've been a little selfish. All I want is for you to have the same experiences every teenager gets to have before this time in your lives is gone. But I forgot there's nothing normal about you. It doesn't matter what I want. You should be living the lives you were meant to for. Forgive me. It was just so difficult losing your father. I hate feeling like I lost you too. I'm sorry we made you feel like you lost us, Connor said. You're my children, but other people's heroes, Charlotte said. Any mother would be lucky to be in my shoes, but that doesn't mean they're easy to wear. Sometimes at the end of the day, I just have to pretend you're both asleep in your beds. Charlotte dabbed the corner of her eyes with her napkin. Alex and Connor couldn't blame their mom for wishing things were different. They did too. The twins put so much time and effort into ending people's suffering, they didn't realize how much their own mother was hurting. But if their mom was willing, she was about to become more involved in their lives than she was prepared for. Now tell me, what's going on in the fairy tale world, Charlotte said, and how in the world am I going to help you with it? Alex and Connor were relieved they could continue discussing their plan. Both opened their mouths to fill her in, but they were at a loss for words. After all, it was a complicated thing to explain. So much of it involved their Uncle Lloyd, and they didn't want to overwhelm their mom with news of an evil brother-in-law. Long story short, a terrible man has taken over the fairy tale world, Connor said. They call him the Masked Man. How'd he take over? Charlotte asked. He stole a potion from Grandma that turned every written work into a portal into the world it describes, Alex said. He traveled into Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and Peter Pan. Somehow he recruited the Queen of Hearts, the Wicked Witch of the West, Captain Hook, and all their minions and soldiers into a big literary army and attacked all the kingdoms. That sounds terrifying, Bob said. Those villains used to give me nightmares when I was a kid. They're much worse in real life, Connor said. Imagine how scary you thought they were. Now double that image, cover it in butter, and leave it outside for a week. That's how frightening they really are. Why can't the Fairy Council do something? Why does it always have to fall on your shoulders? Charlotte asked. The Fairy Council has been turned to stone, and all the soldiers in all the kingdoms are no match for the literary army, Alex said. If we don't find a way to stop them, no one will. Charlotte hated that so much responsibility had fallen onto her children's young shoulders. For the record, I am not okay with you two fighting these guys, Charlotte said. But how are you going to stop them? Alex nudged Connor. Tell her your plan, she said. Connor didn't appreciate his sister's unenthusiastic introduction. We're going to recruit our own army, he said. We're going to use the same potion to travel into my short stories and bring back my characters. Charlotte and Bob couldn't believe what they were hearing. Oh my gosh, Charlotte said. Is that really the only thing you can do? Trust me, I wish I could file a report with the Pentagon, Connor said. Sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire. I still don't see how I fit into this, Charlotte said. The moment had finally come for the twins to tell her. It was such an absurd request, the twins were afraid to ask. If she refused, they weren't sure who could help them. We need you to look after Connor's characters as we bring them from his stories, Alex said. It was like someone pressed the pause button on Charlotte and Bob. Without breathing or blinking, they just looked at the twins with open mouths and large eyes. They weren't taking it well. Connor waved his hand in front of their faces. Are you still with us? He asked. Sorry, Bob said. It's just... Most parents of 15-year-olds only worry about getting asked for money to go to the movies or driving permits. Connor sat up excitedly. Oh my gosh, Alex, we're old enough for driving permits, he said in one breath. One crisis at a time, remember? Alex said. So Mom and Bob, can you help us? Bob and Charlotte looked at each other and shrugged. If it'll save the fairy tale world, I won't object, Bob said. What kinds of characters are going to be at my house? Charlotte asked. We just had the carpets cleaned. Oh, nothing crazy. Pirates, cyborgs, superheroes, mummies, the usual fictional suspects, Connor said under his breath. So does that mean you guys are in? The twins held their breath. Charlotte was hesitant, but it might have been more concerning if she were completely fine with the idea. "All right," she said. "It'll be an adventure." The twins were so relieved they sank a foot in their seats. "Awesome," Connor said. "Fantastic," Alex said. Bob and Charlotte glanced down at the Storybook Grill menus. But it was a very difficult conversation to follow with French fries and hamburgers. They both pushed the menus away. "You know what? I think I lost my appetite," Charlotte said. "Maybe we should go home and I'll cook something later." "I agree," Bob said. The twins weren't going to argue. They left the Storybook Grill with Bob and Charlotte and headed back home. All of them were completely unaware that their entire conversation had been heard by the patrons in the next booth. The book huggers leaned so far out of their seats to watch them leave that Cindy and Mindy fell to the floor. The night had consisted of the most important eavesdropping of their lives. "Girls, did you hear everything I just heard?" Cindy asked. "I'm not sure," Lindy said. "My heart started beating so hard toward the end I only heard every other word." "We've been right all along," Mindy said. "They never went to Vermont. They were living in another dimension. Did any of us ever think of that?" Wendy raised a hand, reminding the group it had been one of her suspicions from the very beginning. "Forget Sherlock Holmes," Cindy said. "We've got our own mystery to follow." And that is the end of Chapter 4. Chapter 5 is called Cries from the Castle. I'll see you for the next chapter. Bye.